That's my sister Kelly and her blind reaction to the latest RafScrap cover, which, unbeknownst to her, I was a part of. Look how thrilled she is. Ah, the pride she has for her big brother positively leaps from her face. Now, let us thrill to her thoughtful insights as she graces us with her comprehensive and erudite review.
So I think brother needs to start wearing a silver chain around his neck, I guess. That's my takeaway. Silver chain, Andrew.
Okay. But why stop there? So, yeah. I sang a harmony part and provided the voice for Banzai on RafScrap's cover of Be Prepared from The Lion King. How the hell did that happen? Well, settle in, friends, and I shall regale you with an incredible tale of epic drama, artistic passion, and ubiquitous discord. Once upon a time, RafScrap asked if I'd like to sing on one of her covers, and I said yes. You know, they say brevity is the soul of wit, but I think even Polonius would agree that this story would benefit from a few more details. Late last year, I made a video highlighting a handful of YouTube musicians I think are nifty, and among them were cover artists RafScrap and Gico. About 6 months later, Raf and Gico debuted a pair of collaborations which credited my video with playing a part in them working together. I invited both on my podcast to talk shop, and while we were ironing out the details, Raf asked if I'd be interested in being a vocalist for one of her future projects, and I said, yep. So she invited me to her Discord server where we hashed out a few details. I was concerned my recording equipment might not be up to snuff, but she assured me my Blue Yeti microphone was just fine. I just needed something to muffle background noise, and she sent me a pic of her own DIY solution for sound dampening, an egg carton. My heart dropped in my chest. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I could not follow suit. Perhaps our worlds were just too different, and this project was doomed from the start. You see, I am a liquid egg whites guy. So, I bought this isolation ball and pop filter combo, nearly thrice as much as if I'd just gone to the grocery store and bought a dozen eggs, but at least I knew this was in stock. Eggs? Half the time the shelves are bare. Besides, I can use this to improve the sound quality of my game streams and podcasts, which means I am justified in spending your Patreon dollars on it. Humbly obliged, my esteemed and munificent patrons. Raf told me she was planning to hit some of the big Disney villain songs this summer and provided me with a few options to see if any struck my fancy. Be Prepared from The Lion King, Hellfire from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and The Court of Miracles, also from Hunchback. I gave the three a critical listen and reported that Be Prepared won out for me on account of there being so many interesting and varied things going on with the background vocals. So, you have me to thank for the super spiffy RafScrap cover of Be Prepared. No, just kidding. She told me it was her favorite too. She then asked if I'd like to voice Banzai. I said sure, and we were off to the races. At this point, I'd like to highlight that throughout the entire process, Raf was always exceptionally kind, accommodating, and considerate. She asked for my vocal range to make sure I'd be able to sing the harmonies she wrote. She made it clear that my comfort with singing or voice acting was always a priority, and she checked to make sure her timeline worked with my schedule. I always saw my participation in this project as an immense privilege, and it was. But she treated it like I was doing her a favor. Raf set up a Discord channel for the project and set a work schedule that gave me serious anxiety, and I wasn't involved in planning, writing, arranging, mixing, or art. All I had to do was sing a harmony part and deliver like 4 or 5 lines of dialogue. Jesus did the instrumentals and mastering, and Raf did most everything else. And in early May, she shortened the schedule by 2 weeks. And this is not the only project she was working on at the time. See, my heart rate's going up just thinking about it, and my contributions were comparatively minuscule. Anyway, according to the schedule, she'd provide guides about 2 weeks later, and I'd have a generous 12 days to record and submit my vocals. Until then, I got to sit back, relax, and enjoy the iterative process of the instrumentals coming together. Maybe not everyone's jam, but I got a kick out of listening to each successive demo as more and more sounds were layered in and refined. Even got a sneak peek at some early vocals, too. Quick tangent. When I told my sister Raf and Gico had sung the flower duet, she immediately said, "Oh, from Lakma," then started singing the melody. On meows. Meow, 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 meow. It's something she does when she doesn't know or doesn't feel like reciting lyrics or dialogue. Basically, it's her version of blah, blah, blah. So I was extremely amused to hear Raf do the same thing at one point in an early scratch track.
A shining new era is tiptoeing nearer.
Meow, 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 meow.
Just listen to teacher.
Fast forward to early May, and Raf sent a learning track of my harmony part along with recording best practices and instructions on how to export the file once I was done. Learning tracks, recordings of individual parts that performers can sing along with, are wonderful tools, and there goes an earring. Wonderful tools and a valuable part of rehearsing. Not only can they teach you the notes, rhythms, and lyrics, but also things like phrase endings, breaths, diphthongs, and even vowels. After all, there's a big difference between connected and connected. It's great that we'll soon be connected. Connected. Ted. Tid. Neither one is more correct than the other, but it's important for your melody and harmony singers to sing vowels the same way, or the vocals aren't going to match. So, learning tracks. Thumbs up. But I'm a more visual learner, so I jotted down a rough transcription of the part so I would have something to reference while practicing and eventually recording. Overkill? Perhaps, but I find it useful. While I'm practicing throughout the day, if I'm unsure I've got the right note, lyric, vowel cutoff, or whatever, I can just quickly glance at the score, instead of walking over to my computer, firing up Raf's tracks, scrubbing ahead to the relevant section, and giving it another listen. Raf advised I reduce the gain on my mic while recording to keep my vocals from clipping, so after familiarizing myself with the part, I spent the first night experimenting with the proper balance of gain and distance from the mic. The sweet spot seemed to be about a foot and a half away, with the gain turned nearly all the way down. I wouldn't be able to blast anything at full volume and resonance, but I didn't feel my part called for that anyway. The next night, I recorded my first take and immediately botched it. Even though I was physically holding the score in front of my face, I started the opening phrase on an ooh instead of an ah. Oops. I botched the second take on the second phrase by coming in on the wrong note. Now, in my defense, that first note is a raised fifth, which is a difficult part of a chord to start on, and that's why for my third take, I played that note on my keyboard to make sure I sang it correctly. With that little cheat, I managed to make it to the end, and I had my first pass at the singing bits. On to the talking bits. Raf told me I was free to take creative liberties with my performance of Banzai's lines, so, Andrew, I hear you inquire. What was your process? How did you find the character? Well, giving me such broad latitude in how I delivered the lines told me Raf wasn't looking for me to imitate Cheech Marin's performance from the original film, and I knew I didn't want to use my regular speaking voice because I didn't think it would sound right if Banzai spoke in a lower register than Scar. Aside from that, Banzai is high energy, enthusiastic, and kinda stupid. But to find the voice, I actually worked backwards from the laugh. At the end of the song, Scar and the hyenas break into what Raf describes on the learning track as evil laughs. Now, again, I didn't want Banzai undercutting Scar with bassy wah-ha-has, so I went with a high-pitched cackle based on some of the sounds hyenas make. From there, I spoke in the same vocal placement, then brought it forward to add an excited energy and pinched the sound to give it a bit more personality. And there you have the voice I landed on for Banzai. Yeah, be prepared. We'll be prepared. For what? So I recorded his lines and they clipped. It was the high-pitched cackling and the cries of, "Long live the king!" Too loud. Well, I couldn't reduce the gain on my mic much more without turning it off, and if you back up too far, your voice sounds very distant, so I futzed around with my recording software a bit more and found a slider that allowed me to reduce the recording volume. I dropped it to 80%, and that seemed to do the trick. Not only was I able to record the loudest bits of dialogue without clipping, but if Raf came back asking for a louder, more present quality to any of my singing, I knew I could record that without clipping too. This is what a track with clipping looks like. See those red lines? You don't want those. But if you get your settings just right, Saint Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. To the company store. See? No clipping. Now that I had my first pass recorded, per Raf's instructions, I exported a WAV file, uploaded it to Discord, and learned that Discord has a 10 meg limit on uploaded files. So I popped the uncompressed file into a Dropbox folder and sent Raf the link telling her to let me know what she liked, what she didn't, and that I'd record a new take for her later in the week. She listened to it and replied, "Vocals are perfect, no need for retakes, thank you." Oh. Shit. I try not to let my imposter syndrome off its leash, but I knew my vocals weren't perfect, and I couldn't help but think Raf was sitting there, regretting the life choices that led her to listen to my recording, despondent over the fact that no number of retakes would fix the horror that just assaulted her musical sensibilities. She'd record the part herself and bury my contribution in a deep, dark place that no one would ever find, lest my atonal warbling escape into the wild and doom the earth, like a modern-day Pandora's box, only this time there'd be no hope. Or maybe I should just trust Raf that my recording passed muster and stop being an overly dramatic little putz muffin. The final mix is public, so let thine ears be the judge. My part in the project's complete. I got to kick up my feet and enjoy Raf and Jesus's back and forth over the mix, tweaking small bits by nigh imperceptible amounts that most casual listeners would never notice. Do you know what sibilance is? They do. and they take that stuff super seriously. My favorite moment was when Jesus provided the final mix for Raf's approval. She had the previous day updated the project timeline, shortening the schedule by 2 weeks. With the cover's premiere now only a week away, she knew she needed to turn her focus to the video's art and animation and said, "No, not going to listen to the mix. I will just trust you. Thank you for your hard work." He replied, "Are you sure? There's some new stuff in there, like extra vocals, just in case you want to check. Hee hee hee." So a compromise was reached. He would send her the relevant timestamps, and she'd review only the new bits. She listened to the whole thing. She had notes. And proceeded to detail a laundry list of teeny tiny little tweaks and adjustments. Artists, man. We have to impose deadlines on ourselves, or we will tinker with our projects until the heat death of the universe. Later that day, she shared her design for Scar and said she'd begin work on the Hyenas. When she shared her design for Banzai a few hours later, I was caught completely off guard to find he was not only humanoid, but a caricature of me. And that should not have been surprising. I'm familiar with Raf's work, but for some inexplicable reason, even though I had just seen her design for Scar, which is humanoid and looks like her, I was bafflingly expecting hyenas. I don't know why. Anyway, Raf, considerate and accommodating as always, asked if I approved of the design, made sure I was okay when she updated it to add jewelry, and let me know that she was open to making changes if something wasn't working for me. All around class act, that RafScrap. The next day, Raf shared a new piece of Banzai art that had me in stitches and, to this day, never fails to get a chuckle out of me. When I recorded Banzai's dialogue, I slightly changed one of his lines. In the original film, Scar tells the hyenas to be prepared for the death of the king, and Banzai asks, "Why, is he sick?" I changed it to, "Oh, is he sick?" Certainly a departure from the feeling and intent of the original delivery, but I thought it was a fun thing to try, and if Raf felt it didn't work, I had no issue recording a different take. Instead, she leaned into it with hilariously adorable results. Look at that face. The way he pulls down his glasses, revealing a look of genuine concern, like there might have been a get well card going around that he hadn't had a chance to sign. Oh, too good. Raf finished the art 2 days later and started on the animation, none of which I saw until the video's premiere, so I got to experience and enjoy some new things along with everybody else. Be Prepared had its YouTube premiere on Saturday, May 24th at noon Pacific Standard Time to scores of RafScrap's fans and both of mine. And that's the entire story, except for all the bits I left out. I hope you had at least a fraction of the fun hearing about it as I did experiencing it. Until next time, friends, I bid you adieu. Auf Wiedersehen. Adios. Bye. Bye. See? No clipping.